When you're starting out as a filmmaker or creator, typically learning to make the best video is the only thing you actually care about. Learning to shoot, edit, and lighting, they all need to be perfect. But when you get a baseline knowledge of how to actually make films, you probably want to get paid for your films. Now, here are 5 skills that I've learned over the last 7 years of being a filmmaker that have helped me a ton when it comes to filmmaking and being a creator, as well as getting paid to make videos. But none of these skills are related to cameras at all. Real quick, before we move on to the first skill, you might remember that in our last video, I said that I had moved and I've changed my setup, and that is true, except I've just coincidentally come back to Kelowna for a couple shoots as well as to visit. So we are back at our old stomping ground just for this video. Next video won't be here, but it feels good to be back. Anyways, on with the first skill. If you've been around the business corner of YouTube at all, you've probably heard so many people say things like,
I make $50,000 per month with copywriting. Buy my course to find out how, and you can do it too.
Or,
check out my free training.
And apart from being an internet guru's favorite thing to try and sell a course on, copywriting is actually a skill that can be quite useful and is good in many aspects of business, especially filmmaking. If you don't know what copywriting is, it's the skill of writing for the purpose of advertising and promotion. At least that's the more official definition. I understand it as how to write to make people buy from you with persuasion. Now, this is really useful because when you're making videos, one of the most common purposes for a video that you get hired to make is for the purpose of promotion or selling. And with copywriting, you learn some key things about what persuades people to buy. This is really easy to work into your video scripts and ultimately make people want to buy what your video is selling. Content creation is just copywriting, but in video form. So having an understanding of the foundations of creating persuading content and scripts is a vital skill to have. For example, in copywriting, one of the most important things to keep in mind is to sell the vacation. This means you should always highlight the benefits of a product and not its features. What is the buyer going to get from actually using your product? This tip alone has helped us make videos that do a really good job of converting people to buy a product. And contrary to what a lot of these business gurus make you believe, you can learn a lot of the basics of copywriting on YouTube by watching YouTube videos, and you don't need to buy their course. Also, the skill of copywriting is great for emails, DMs, and any other means of communicating with a potential client who might want to hire you. This next tip is probably the most important one on the list, and I know for us has been one of the hardest things for us to learn and get good at, and that is time management. When I started as a full-time filmmaker, I distinctly remember telling myself, this is gonna be so awesome. I can set my own hours and I can work whenever I want. And that is true, but that is actually the worst thing ever. Unless you're extremely self-disciplined, it's extremely difficult to get to work consistently and not procrastinate. For me, I would usually have around 5 hours of work to do in a day, but if there was no deadline, I would spread that work out over the whole day. For example, I would wake up at like 8 a.m., lay in bed for a little, go make some breakfast, get dressed, and by the time I was ready to sit down and get some work done, it was like 10 or 11 a.m. Then I would get about an hour of work done, decide it was time for lunch, take a break, come back, decide to get more work done, but then get distracted doing something like watching YouTube videos or scrolling on TikTok. In the end, I would do like 5 to 8 hours of work, but spread that out over 12 to 14 hours. At the end of the day, I would also feel like I had no time to do anything else, and some days I wouldn't even get everything done that I needed to. Looking at it now, this is probably the #1 contributing factor as to why I got burnt out as bad as I did, and we had to take that break for so long. So trust me, time management is super important. To fix this, I decided to start running my day as if I had a full-time job. This meant forcing myself to work at 9 a.m. and work uninterrupted until 5 p.m., only taking a break for lunch. And it worked. When we did this, I actually started getting stuff done on time and not feeling like I was wasting my time and getting distracted. The other nice part is that once 5 p.m. rolled around, I knew that work time was over and I now had time to do personal things. Doing it this way, I got the advantages of a routine and working full time, but also the flexibility of working for myself. If something came up, I didn't have to request time off. I could just go and do it. So the goal for working for yourself is to not necessarily work whenever you want or whenever you feel like it, but rather to have the flexibility to do things when you want to. Say all your friends are hanging out, you can go and do that and never have to cancel because you're working. But you still have the systems in place to get everything you need to get done. Another really quick bonus tip is to use the Chrome extension Newsfeed Eradicator. This extension alone has saved me hundreds of hours. There's gonna be a link below. You should definitely check it out. The next skill that everyone should get at least a basic understanding of is basic accounting. And this has two sides to it. The first being the financial management and budgeting side, and the other is bookkeeping. This is the most boring skill on the list, but oh man, if you don't understand it, it can really hurt you. I know that for Steven and I, we didn't learn that this was actually a valuable skill to know and to have a baseline knowledge of until like our third year of business. Before this, we were literally keeping track of our expenses and stuff in Google Sheets and in spreadsheets, which made tax season a total pain in the ass. Now, I'm gonna start real quick with the bookkeeping side, and I recommend that you learn how to keep track of your income and expenses, especially if you're a freelance filmmaker, and also if you are like a one-man band. Once you start investing some serious money into gear like cameras and lenses, it's good to know how to write that off for taxes.
So that's a write-off.
Who writes it off?
I don't know. The write-off people.
And it's relatively easy, especially if you are doing this solo, and it can save you a ton of money. A great free software that you can check out is Wave Accounting, which has a ton of great features, and you don't have to spend like $50 per month for something like QuickBooks. The other part of accounting is the financial management and budgeting side. Learning how to spend money responsibly can be really helpful, especially when you are a freelance filmmaker. For many people, you'll get paid in lump amounts when you finish a project, and sometimes payments don't actually show up for 30, 60, or up to 90 days. So this means that some months you might make a ton of money, but then there's other months where you might not make so much. It really fluctuates. Something that we do is Steven and I each pay ourselves out a set amount of money each month that is enough to cover our lifestyles, regardless of how much money the business actually made and deposited. The whole goal here is to build up a bit of a pot of money or a cash reserve over time as you do work that allows you to have a steady stream of income in the event that you do have some slower months or you take time off. At the end of the year, if you notice you have a large amount of money, you can always pay yourself a bonus or use that money to invest into new camera gear. Okay, so I know that last skill was relatively boring, but if you're still watching, please go down and give this video a like because it really helps us out. Now, on with the next skill. The next skill that I think is wildly underrated is a basic understanding of engineering and making stuff. When you're a filmmaker, you always are either building rigs or fixing existing rigs.
He loves looking at rigs.
If you have an idea for a shot that requires a rig and that rig doesn't exist, the only option you have is to make it yourself. Now, I'm sure many of you guys know about our POV rig that we made that holds a Blackmagic camera or a Sony camera. That didn't exist anywhere, so we had to resort to building it on our own. In this skill, I would include things like basic woodworking, like how to use a saw or a drill, or even basic metalworking skills, especially like bending metals and using nuts and bolts. Nuts and bolts are pretty much our favorite thing ever. Heck, as long as you are the type of person that can actually build an IKEA desk without needing someone else's help, you probably have a competent amount of skill in this area to be effective. Just have some understanding of how things work, how they go together, and it should be able to give you the ability to fix things if they break or you're in a bind. Now, the last skill I'm going to touch on is typography. This skill is one that I see many beginner filmmakers struggle with, and it's fairly simple to get pretty decent at, and it makes quite a difference. If you don't know, typography is the art of arranging letters and text in a way that makes the copy legible, clear, and visually appealing to the reader. When you're a filmmaker, you are often dealing with on-screen titling, and so many times I see filmmakers who have made a video that is very well shot and edited, but their titles kinda suck. In my opinion, bad typography and titling is one of the main reasons why a video has an amateur look to it. If you care about the titling and the small details, it carries over into the rest of your video. Even just making sure your text is centered or evenly spaced properly into the frame can really help step up the quality of your videos. It's a small thing, but it can make quite a difference. Okay, so that is it. I have learned all these skills over the last 7 years, and I hope by me teaching you, it doesn't take you nearly that long to learn them as well as get pretty decent at them, because it will save you a ton of headaches. If you enjoyed this video and if you learned something, please go down and leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Tell me which skill is maybe your favorite one that you're most interested in potentially learning, because I want to learn. I want to see what you guys thought was the most valuable to you. That's pretty much it. So we'll see you guys in the next video next week. Okay, bye.